Hello everybody, welcome. My name's John Lacey and this is Learn Live Streaming Live. So today on the show we're going to be talking about cutting and editing in DaVinci Resolve. We are going out live to all the various places, so please let me know if you are watching live. Be sure to say hello in the chat, I'd love to hear from you. So today we're going to be talking about DaVinci Resolve and we're going to look at cutting and editing specifically. And I want to sort of take you through a couple of different projects and just introduce you to this software. And I guess the first thing I would say about this software is it can seem a little overwhelming. So what I want to tell you about that though is that this is incredibly powerful software. It's built for industry. You can literally make movies and documentaries in this. But for most content creators, you don't need all that functionality, and I just don't want you to be too overwhelmed by that too quickly. So just keep that in mind. We can get started really easily. There's literally a free version of DaVinci Resolve that you can run with and start working with. Hello to Ender Trader, who said good morning, good early morning from Vietnam. Great to have your company. Hope Vietnam's treating you well. So let's just get stuck in. I'm going to share my screen over here. I've actually got a project already open in DaVinci Resolve, and I just want to give you a quick brief overview of the different parts. And again, don't be overwhelmed by this. You only need what you want to use. It's a great question, Ender, and I'll just briefly introduce these different sections and I'll come back to it in just a second. But if you have a project open in DaVinci Resolve, you'll actually see that we've got these sections down the bottom. Probably a little small on the screen there, but we've got our media. And this is the files that we've got in our project. We've got the cut page, which is something that's kind of unusual for video editing software, but I'll come back to that in a second. We've got the edit page. We've got Fusion. This is something if you want to do special effects and animations, this is a really great place to play. We've got the color tab. So if you've got color correction that you want to do, you can do that over there. We've got the Fairlight audio section. So if you want to do more granular edits and have special audio effects. And finally, we've got this little rocket ship, which is the Deliver tab. So these are all the things that you can do in here. There's so much built into all of these. For today's purposes, we're going to stick pretty much to the cut and the edit page, and then I'll talk about the Deliver page at the end. But Ender has a question. It's a great question. He writes, do you like CapCut? CapCut used to be the software that Sampref and I would recommend to most beginners because it was really good software to work with. It was very easy. You could get started easily. The thing that changed for CapCut, and it's not really about the software itself so much as the terms and conditions. There was some stuff in there that was a little bit concerning about using your materials, your drafts, your likeness, that just makes me a little bit nervous about recommending that anymore, and I have deleted it from all my devices and I don't use CapCut anymore. It's really sad because it was a great piece of software, but it's just something that I think you need to be a little bit careful about using for those reasons. Make sure you read those terms and conditions and just, get some legal advice if you need to. So I guess first of all, there are all kinds of software out there for video editing. So maybe we should start by talking about why I'm particularly excited about DaVinci Resolve. And first of all, I do love the power of it. And I've only scratched the surface, but I love a tool that is powerful enough that I can grow into it and learn more about it and use it and really advance my capabilities, my learning over time. Whereas if you use a really simple tool, it'll work great. You've just got to embrace the constraints. And once you've exhausted those constraints, you kind of need to move on to a new piece of software, which might be fine, or it might be a whole new learning curve. So I'd much rather start somewhere that I want to sort of continue and finish. But let's go back to CapCut, and I'm going to talk... what have you done to me? Every time I look at the chat, I see the word CapCut and I say it out loud. We're not talking about CapCut today, we're talking about DaVinci Resolve. So let's go over to DaVinci Resolve. I've got my project here. I'm just gonna create a new project. So I'm gonna go to File, New Project. In fact, no, what I'll do is I'm gonna close this project. And what you'll see is that we have our DaVinci Resolve Studio here. We've got our project libraries. One thing that is a little bit different about DaVinci Resolve is that it does actually have this database of video projects. So you'll have a local database. You sort of tell DaVinci where on your computer you want to store things. And then you can come in and create your different projects. And you'll see I've got a bunch of different projects here for different things. I have actually started trying to organize these in categories with more than one library. Again, might be something you want to explore. You might want to just stick with a single local database. That's entirely up to you. But let's go and create a new project. And I can do that by double clicking on Untitled Project. Or I can go New Project at the bottom there. Let's call this Demo Project 1. Okay, so we've got these different sections in DaVinci Resolve. I'm just going to go over here, and I've got another window on a screen that that you guys can't actually see. But what I'm going to do, and I'm just in the cut page, and I'm just changing. I've got some video files in another folder. I'm just going to drag and drop them into the master over here. So I'm going to drag and drop this and put it over here. It'll ask me if I want to change the project frame rate. So I'm going to say yes, and I think that's a good idea if it does tell you to do this. This is footage that I've recorded on the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. And I've got this footage over here, and I've got 3 different files, and I'm going to sort of talk to you about how we can use the cut page to get started with these really easily. And this is a really interesting thing about DaVinci Resolve, is that it has a cut page, and I've never used any other software that has a dedicated section for cutting video in the way that this does. And I should say too, I have run out and purchased this magical thing. This is the DaVinci Resolve Speed Editor. It's a great piece of software. It'll let me scrub through my video, make edits, make cuts really quickly. It's really cool. And the great thing about this is that it actually comes with the software. So you buy the hardware, you get the paid studio version for free, and it lets me do all kinds of wonderful things. And again, before I had this, I didn't really understand what the deal was with the cut page, but I'm going to talk to you about it now. So on the speed editor, I've got a couple of buttons. One says source and one says timeline. If I click on source, you'll see that it's actually here in my preview window up here. It's actually showing me my videos, and I don't know how obvious this will be, but it's going to show me all 3 of these videos in one continuous section. And there are some little white lines indicating where one ends and the next one begins. But now I can scrub through this video. And we do have, and I can go forwards and backwards. And again, you're probably hearing a lot of background noise there, which is fine. I might even just make this a little bit larger so you can see it more prominently. But the great thing about this is that we can sort of come in and I can decide if I want this to be an input. I can go in on my DaVinci Speed Resolve editor. But that said, if you don't have one of these fancy devices, you can just use I on the keyboard. We can move the cursor to another point. And again, this is sort of a long continuous shot of the parkland. So I'd probably want to use a fair bit of this ordinarily, but for today's purposes, I'm just going to put an out point here. And again, you can do that on the speed editor or the O key on the keyboard. Once I've got that there, I can insert it into my timeline. And you can see that I've got that down on the timeline. Again, on the speed editor, you'll see just above the scroll wheel, there are 2 gray buttons. The one on the left says source, the one on the right says timeline, and you can switch between these things really easily in that regard. So again, I can actually, I can go back to the source and I can just make sure I've actually selected the source. All right, cool. All right, I'm gonna go back to my source. There we go. Okay, so you'll see I've got this section selected. If I press the in-out together, it'll actually clear those for me. I can keep going. Maybe there's another clip that I want to get. Maybe it starts around here. Again, do the same thing. In. Have a look around. And maybe that's my output. And I can go insert. Okay. I just hit the wrong key, so there we go. I'll do that again in a second. Hello to Raina, who's joining us in the chat. Great to have your company today. So we're looking at DaVinci Resolve, and again, I'm just taking you through the cut page. By the way, I am using the speed editor. This is a physical hardware piece of equipment, which is really cool and really nifty, and it comes with a paid version of DaVinci Resolve. But if you can do a lot of this stuff with a keyboard and mouse as well. But basically, all I'm doing is I'm sort of scrolling through my footage. I'm going to decide where my in point needs to be, and I'm going to go to my out point. My out point's actually still set from last time. So again, on this keyboard, I'm going to go Smart Insert. And I've got that there, and then I can sort of go back to my source. And basically, you can just go through a long timeline, and you can just clip out the points you want and insert them here. What I might do though, because I want to show you some other things, I'm going to actually just delete this stuff from this timeline. I'm going to go grab some other files from my computer, and should you upgrade OBS, I think is probably what I'm looking for. I'm going to grab that, I'm going to drag it in, and I'm just going to show you a couple of other really nifty things that we can do. It's one of those great things that I've got a lot of footage in here. I'm not really sure what I'm looking for, but I'm just gonna grab one at random. For our purposes today, it shouldn't really matter too much. So I'm gonna grab that there. And again, I'm gonna select my source. And again, you could just physically click on this if you wanted to. This is actually a vertical video in this case. So what I'd want to do is actually come up to my file menu and go, sorry, not the file menu. I think it's the file menu. Project settings. And just make sure that under master settings, we've got the timeline resolution. I just want to make sure I've got this use vertical resolution selected. So now I've got this. And again, in the same way that we just did for the rest of it, I can come in and I can sort of find out where this starts. And again, I probably made a lot of bad takes here, so we'll probably get to enjoy those together.
But should you...
But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to select a random bit. I'm going to go in and out, and I'm going to go Smart Insert, and that's going to put that on the timeline. If you do actually have a video that's just you talking to the camera, there is one really nifty thing, and again, I want to make sure I'm selecting the timeline when I do this. There's one really nifty thing, and it's so easy and it's so simple, and you could do this manually if you wanted to, but you don't have to, which is the most amazing thing. We have this magical option here called close-up, and again, there is a physical button for this on the speed editor, but I'm just going to click this one here. And you'll see that it is literally just sort of done a close-up. So if you want a slightly different angle and you've only got the one footage, that can be a really good way of doing it. And again, from here, I'd probably just go in and decide what portion of this that I want to actually, because maybe I don't want the whole thing, and I could probably just drag this in and say maybe that portion of the clip I want to actually be a close-up, and then I can play that.
A new version of OBS Studio brings exciting new features and bug fixes. But should you upgrade straight away?
It's probably not the place I would actually use that close-up in real life, but I just wanted to show you that. The other thing that's actually pretty nifty about this is if we do have our close-up, there is an option on here. And I'm going to have to think about where it is because I haven't really used it on here, but I've certainly seen videos of people using it. There's an option to actually adjust the vertical, or the Y position, sorry. So I think I need to tap on that twice. Oh, okay, not like that. Maybe I need to actually hold that down. Let me just try that again. So if I hold that down and I move the scroll wheel, I think what I might do, just make sure I'm actually... Yeah, so I can actually decide how, where I want that. So I'm literally just holding down that button and I'm moving it up and down in the frame. And again, if you don't have access to that, we can actually do that on the edit page, and I'll talk to you. In fact, let's just have a look now. So again, the great thing about this is that you can go through potentially a long piece of footage, you can grab the clips, you can throw them into here on the cut page, and then you can move over to the edit page to make some sort of more granular changes. So in this case, if we did want to adjust, you know, the size of this, we do have our properties over here. So in fact, I'm not sure if I can do this here, but I'm going to try it anyway. All right, so yeah, I can do that. So I'm just holding down the Y position key on the speed editor, and you'll see that this Y position here is actually being adjusted whether I move that up or down. So if you don't have this physical hardware thing, you can still just adjust these values here. And the great thing about DaVinci Resolve is that if you go to that part of the value, I can actually use the cursor keys in my keyboard to bring that down. I could put in a value if I knew what I was looking for, and I can work with it like that. So that's a couple of things, especially if you're doing like a talking head video and you only have that one shot. It's just a really good way of introducing some visual difference. But again, I'm going to delete this. Let's actually, in fact, I'm going to take that clip out because I don't really want that right now. Let's remove that selected clip. Let's think about, you know, maybe actually just going back to our source. And again, we've got those 3 clips. Here, interestingly, because I did change the project settings, this is now going to be a vertical video. So I can kind of decide if I want to leave it like that, or maybe I could change it to something else. But again, just a matter of finding my input, putting my out point, and again, if you don't have a speed editor, you can always do this with the I and the O keys on your keyboard. And I'm just going to go Smart Inserts. And again, I'm just going to press those again to clear. And I can scroll through this, I can jog through this, I can use the shuttle option as well. So maybe I want to start from here. I'm going to go in. Going to go out and Smart Insert. Another thing is that we can actually we can insert things on top of other clips from the cut options. So if and I'm going to cheat a little bit. Hello, Jerry. Thanks for being here. Today we're having a look at DaVinci Resolve. I'm just taking you through the cut page at the moment. So this is a way that we can cut up long videos really, really quickly. And the great thing about this, and again, I am working with the speed editor, which is a physical piece of hardware, which you can purchase if you want to, but you don't need to. You can do everything that you need to do potentially with the keyboard, with a standard keyboard and your mouse. But essentially, I've dragged my clips in here and I'm just cutting up different sections of them really quickly. And I'm actually going to, again, because I've got the DaVinci speed editor, I can scroll through this with this really lovely scroll wheel. It feels really, really good. What I'm going to do, I'm going to cheat a little bit because I just want to go to this clip. And again, I'm just going to put an in point, which you can use the keyboard shortcut of I. You can go to where you want it to end. I think that looks pretty good. Let's say maybe, oh, I like that movement. It's actually quite fun. You see, it does, yeah. Okay, let's say about there, I'm going to go out and then I'm just going to go Smart Insert. So I could just Smart Insert that, but what I can do too is if I go back to my timeline, maybe I want to physically put this on top of another clip. And again, this is probably the point at which this is where you're thinking about your B-roll. And it probably doesn't make a lot of sense for this particular example because normally, you know, maybe you'd be talking to the camera and then you'd have the B-roll on top of it. But instead of the Smart Insert, I'm going to actually press another button called Place on Top. And it's going to, if I go back to my timeline, it's going to place that on top of where I was. So in this case, this video goes quite long, so I could do it like that. I'll give you another example in a second of what might be better actually in that case, but I'm just going to delete that clip for the moment. Let's go back to our source. I'm actually going to go to the end of my timeline, go back to my source. And in this case, I'm just going to smart insert it and just append it to the end. And then we've got our clips here. So I know it probably doesn't seem very exciting, but it is so useful. And again, this is something I've not encountered in any other video software I've used in the past. So it is just really nifty. And again, a lot of the clips I'm making, they're very short. They're just for social media. But if you were cutting an entire documentary and you had like, I don't know, 50 clips and you wanted to go through them all, and maybe you have your B-roll and you want to put that on top, you can do that as well. So in this case, if I go over to my edit page now, I can sort of think about some other things that I might want to do. And in this case, if I'm just going to hit play and we're going to listen to this in the background. It's a great question, Jerry. So Jerry asks, what's the white rectangle box? So in this case, that's kind of a guide, and I probably don't need that there at the moment. But if I click on this little thing, it sort of gives me indications of what I'm sort of working with. So in this example, I actually started in a 16:9 format and I changed halfway through to use different footage. So in this case, if I actually just select that as 16:9, that'll get rid of that one for me. But I can also sort of have some safeguards. So if I want to actually just show the center of this as well, I can do that as well. And you know, if we've got all kinds of different rulers that we can have on top of these. And again, none of this stuff will be on the video. It's just a guide for you to show where you're up to. But again, if I was maybe if I sort of had the intention of maybe editing something and I wanted it to be both for 16:9 and 9:16, this might be a really good way of just reminding myself where I want to put the most prominent things. So again, if you did have someone speaking, you'd probably want to make sure that they were inside this box. But again, it's just a guide, and if it is annoying, you can go in and turn it off, which I think I'll do right now. All right, so we've got this. I'm just going to play through this a little bit. Again, it's not the most exciting thing in the world, but just as an example, we've got me sort of walking through the park with my Digio Osmo Pocket 3. You can hear some of the background music there, background noise, I should say. And again, if I wanted to, I could just use the speed editor to go through this a little bit more quickly. I could grab my clips. Some bird sounds in the background of that one. So from here, this is potentially where I would go and make further edits. And there's all kinds of stuff that we can do here. We've got things like video transitions. And if I actually hover over any of these and like drag the cursor across, it'll actually give you an idea of what that will look like. And we've got a blur dissolve, so we could do something like that. We've got the iris, which again, I don't know, might be useful some places. I do think that dates very quickly. We've got things like slides. We've got the heart. I often think with video editing, less is more. So don't get too carried away with these. But, you know, they can be fun, especially depending on, you know, if you're doing something that is sort of intentionally funny and over the top, then some of these things will be really good. Other times you'll probably want to avoid them. So just for our purposes today, I'm just going to grab one at random. What could be fun, I wonder? Radial? Yeah, let's try radial. So again, I could actually just drag and drop this onto a section between two clips. And now if I go back, you'll see this transition. If you actually want to change the length of this transition, just hover over the white box on the timeline, drag it out a little bit, make it longer. And again, I'm pretty sure that there is actually a button on my speed editor called transition. And I think, I don't know if that's one I need to actually... All right, I'm not entirely sure how that works. So I'm going to have to do more research on that. But there is actually a transition option here that I think theoretically should let me adjust the length of that one. But again, I'm pretty new to this, so I'm going to have to figure that out. But essentially what we can do is I can play through this. You'll see the transition. It's going from one to the other. And again, the longer you drag that out, the more dramatic it will be, less dramatic it will be. It'll be sort of smoother. So again, if I wanted to make that maybe a little bit more obvious, and again, I'm not sure why I personally would, but maybe that's something you want to do. I can make it shorter. The other thing too is that while I've got this transition selected, you'll see over here in our inspector is we've got all the different properties for this. So I could potentially come in here and change the transition type. So if I'm not sure that's the one I wanted, I could certainly play with some others. So let's try with the box transition. And again, just play through that one. We can see what that looks like. We can adjust the duration in seconds or frames. We can adjust the alignments. There's all kinds of different things in here. And also transitioning the audio as well. So in this case, they actually did a bit of a crossfade for me, which is nice. And I can sort of come in here and I can, I can actually turn those things on and off. So maybe you just want to see what that looks like without the transition. He says, and it doesn't actually do what I was thinking it was going to do. Let me just try that again. So if I adjust this, okay, we turn that off. Okay, it's again not doing exactly what I expected it to do, but that's fine. The other thing too is if you decide you don't want this transition anymore, just click into that section and we can just hit delete. And that will get rid of it. So we do have all these different transitions. If you want to have a transition, you can. Again, I think in a lot of cases, these can be fun, but don't get too carried away because they really will. They will distract from your content. That's not really what you want. And some of these are very, very trippy. So you probably want to use them carefully. All right, so we have audio transitions, we have video transitions. So the audio transitions are very much about crossfades, and it looks like they're just at different values. We do have titles. So again, this is probably something that would be quite useful. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of here. And again, if we hover over these, it'll give us some sense of what's actually happening here. A lot of these are just text. Some of these might be animated. But essentially, if we find something that kind of looks like what we want, we can drag it on and use it. So in this case, we've got something called a long shadow. I can drag that onto my timeline. And again, just make sure we select that and we can go and change the values. So I'll say the park. And again, we could adjust the size of that. We could make that bigger. We could do the tracking, the line spacing. There's all kinds of settings here. Again, just have a play with these. Don't get too overwhelmed by them. We can even adjust the shadow. So in this case, we've got a color for the shadow. So I could maybe make that a different color if I wanted to. Maybe make this a dark blue. Interestingly, this seems to... I might need to select all of that if I want to change... Oh, it's a gradient. There we go. So again, if I wanted to change both of these, I just go in and change one at a time. So I might go black into that dark blue. And that looks pretty cool. Again, we can actually bring in some effects on our video, and we can apply transitions just to not just the video, but also things within it. So if we wanted to maybe have this slide in at the beginning, I can drag this on here and we go back to the beginning of our video. I hit play and you'll see that it slides in from one side. And again, you can do that. And the other thing to note about that is that I've sort of actually brought that in and dropped it on the beginning of that clip. That's where I want the transition. But I could also bring it on to the end as well. And again, just making sure that that's selected. We have options. So it slid in from left to right. In this case, we probably want it to, well, I guess in some sense that would probably also work, but we can go from top to bottom, up and down, whatever. So again, I can hit play and away we go. And you can see that was quite an easy thing to do. And again, if you decide you hate it, you can click on those, you can change them, you can do whatever you like. Hello to Business Growth Ready, who writes, using too many transitions in the same edit is like a time machine. It can quickly take somebody back into the late 1970s and early 1980s. I must admit, I wasn't alive in the late 1970s, but yes, I totally agree. And the thing you'll find about new people, new students, is they'll want to play with all of the transitions. And I think, honestly, if you're just playing, just do that and get it out of your system. And then when you're ready to make more professional stuff, you can leave that to one side. But it's definitely worth exploring those things. So this is Learn Live Streaming Live. Today we are looking at DaVinci Resolve and cutting and editing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Great to have your company today. And thank you for being here. So I must admit, I'm jumping around quite a bit with a lot of this stuff, but I do want to show you something else. And I'm going to close this demo project. And I'm going to go back to my project management thing here. Should you upgrade OBS? So this is a video. Some of you may have seen it on social media. I can't remember if I've posted this on YouTube, but essentially what we've got here is just a few different clips of me talking. And in this case, I actually did take many clips of me saying the same things over and over again in different positions. So even though this could have potentially just been a close-up with the software, it is literally a different take. And in this case, I've done some weird and wonderful things just to keep myself interested. So in this case, I've actually masked myself out from the background, and I'm still in color, and I've done some weird black and white weird effects with the background. But the thing I really wanted to drag your attention to, and I'm not really sure if this is a studio only feature, it might be. But if I click on this clip, we have some settings over here in our inspector. And I'm going to go to the audio section. We have this thing called AI voice isolation. I don't love AI. I don't love generative AI, but I think there are some uses for AI that are really good. And this is definitely one of those, because I'm actually going to go a little bit further into this clip and I'm going to turn this off. And the thing that may not be obvious right now is that I recorded this outside on an incredibly windy day. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to hit play. Just listen to what this sounds like.
The thing about OBS is that it's incredibly modular, so you can do whatever you need to do. The slightly tricky thing about OBS Studio...
All right, I don't know if that was a great clip as an example. I think there were a few takes where it was a little bit windy. In fact, this might be a better one. So I'll try this.
Is because of that modularity, not all those moving parts may necessarily always play nicely with each other.
So I don't know how obvious that is, but essentially there's a fair bit of wind in the background. Now listen to this when I turn this back on again. And this is the AI voice isolation.
The slightly tricky thing about OBS Studio is because of that modularity, not all those moving parts may necessarily always play nicely with each other.
And I don't know how subtle that is, but it's removed the wind in the background. And I can still see it, obviously, in the footage. I can see the leaves and things moving around, but it stripped that out so well. And I didn't adjust the amount. I didn't play with any of the settings. I just literally switched that on, and I was like, my God, that's amazing. So I don't know if that's available in the free version. I do have the paid version here, but I just wanted to point that out because it was really, really amazing. The other thing, and I might even just go back to my demo project one for this. And again, you don't have to, like, this isn't really a sales pitch for DaVinci Resolve. As much as I love it, you can definitely do most things in the free version. But again, if I go back to the cut page, I might just grab this video again that we were playing with a little bit earlier. And I'm just going to fairly arbitrarily bring a clip. In fact, what I'll do, let me just, in the timeline, I'm just going to make sure I'm at the end of this clip because I don't really want to play with any of the stuff that I've already captured. There probably is an end button on here. I don't know what it is exactly, but that'll do. So we're at the end of a clip. I'm going to go back to my source. You don't need to see me playing with my hair. And again, this probably isn't the best take, but I'm just going to use it from my example here. I'm going to put an in point.
No.
That work? I don't think it did. Let me try that again. In.
Any version of Windows.
All right. That's different. I don't really understand why, but anyway, we'll try and soldier on. In. There we go.
A new version of OBS Studio brings exciting new features and bug fixes. But should you upgrade straight away? Well, maybe.
And I'm going to put an out point, and I'm just going to smart insert that onto the end of the clip. All right. So I've got a little bit of me talking. So if I go back to my edit now, again, this is a paid feature. I just want to point that out, but it is really, really cool. So if I click on this clip and I go up to timeline and I go to AI tools, I'm going to select this create subtitles from audio. And again, it's going to ask me, do I want to specify a language? In this case, I will go English, subtitle default, single. I usually go double, and then there's a gap between subtitles. So I'm going to go create. It's going to do this. This is all powered by my personal computer. It's not going to the cloud or anything or going to external services. And you'll see now I do have some subtitles. One thing I will say too is that, and this is kind of mind-boggling, it's tried to describe the background sounds. It has square brackets and it says water running, and it's actually not water. So again, AI always has its limitations. It did get birds chirping, which is kind of impressive because they were definitely birds at the park when I recorded this. And water running. So in the first instance, the water was correct. Just that last one is a little bit different. So whether you want those or not is kind of up to you. But I just want to point out a couple of things about the subtitles. And the other thing about this too is if you do have other subtitle tools, if you're using the free version of DaVinci Resolve, you can send this off to another program, export the subtitles, and you can actually add a subtitle track. And we can actually drag and drop an SRT file in here and just make sure it's synced up to everything. But let's not dwell on that for too much. Let's go back to our subtitles here. So again, you could just be exporting these as an SRT file, or you could actually have these incorporated into the file itself. So burnt on captions. So a couple of things to do. Let's select our captions over here. We've got the captions here. So it's a really good idea. AI is okay to a point, but you want to go through here and just double check that it's actually saying what you said, and just check that and check any spelling problems. We can just go in here and we can just change that as we like. But the other thing too is if you do want these burnt on, from here we've got the caption tab, but we've also got the track tab, and the track tab is sort of how this stuff is going to be described visually. So again, we could change the fonts, we could change the style of font, so semi-bold, bold, extra bold, whatever. We could change the color. One thing I do like to do is have a bit of a background, because again, this is white text on a background. I'd probably want to adjust the size of this generally too, because this probably would work pretty well for a horizontal video, but I think it's probably a little bit big for a vertical video. But again, we can adjust all these things. So I can go through and I can make those changes. Yeah, so we can have a drop shadow, we can have backgrounds, we can change all kinds of things. The other thing that I personally like doing, and again, you do what you need to do, but I tend to leave the text on the screen as long as it can. So I tend to drag, I sort of remove the space from between these two things a little bit. And then you can see what this looks like.
A new version of OBS Studio brings exciting new features and bug fixes. But should you upgrade straight away? Well, maybe.
And again, we can adjust the size and the position. We can do all of the things. But I just love that part of it. And again, that is part of the paid software. You won't get the generation of those subtitles unless you have the paid version. But again, if you have SRT files, if you've got other transcription tools that you're working with in your kit, then that can be really, really cool. All right, so let's just see what other things we have to play with in the edit section. And again, It's a really good idea to click on the things you've got here and actually just look at the inspector, see what options you've got. So you've got the ability to transform things. Just make sure you're actually looking at the clip that you're working with. So I could potentially just zoom in. And again, that's pretty much all that close-up thing is doing, is sort of it's making it a little bit larger. And again, depending on the quality of your video, you want to be mindful that you're not pixelating it too much if you've got low-res video, but we can adjust all kinds of things. There is an AI smart reframe, which again, I barely played with, but I'm actually kind of curious. So what I'll do, I'm going to actually zoom in on this clip. You'll see the little lock here means that these things should be locked together. So I'm just making sure I've selected that. Maybe I want to zoom in maybe 1.5. So I'll go 1.5 and you'll see that zoomed in quite a bit. I am curious now if we go auto, go reframe. I'm probably, yeah, this is probably not a great example because I'm not moving around in the frame very much, but
version of OBS you get to fixes.
yeah, that's not a great example. Don't worry about that too much, but potentially if you do have movement, especially if you have like a clip where it was horizontal and you're just trying to repurpose it into vertical, that might be a useful thing to play with. We've got stabilization, which is on by default, and I've never really played with it, and I kind of suspect it's doing a lot for me, especially when I'm out in the wild with my DJI Osmo Pocket 3. We've got lens correction, retime scaling. We've got the AI voice isolation, again, kind of amazing. I don't love AI, but that kind of blew my mind a little bit. So I've got that there as well, and we've got our effects. So I don't know that I spoke too much about effects, so let's have a look at these effects. Again, some of these are quite subtle, and some of them really will smack you over the head, so you probably want to be a little bit careful about how you use them, but we've got things like binoculars. Again, it's basically just a mask. I don't know that I would use that very often. There's a CCTV one, which gives you sort of a grainy effect there. Colored border, which literally gives you a colored border, and you can change the color of the border. There's a comic book option, digital glitch, drone overlay, flying flag, which is very interesting. It tries to, represent a flag, which is not very flattering. I'm going to level with you. I don't even know what that one is, really, but it is what it is. DLSR, so again, some of these things do very much seem to relate to horizontal video, so might not work for this particular project. Yeah, and there's one that makes it look like you're on a video call. So again, some of these things, especially if you're repurposing interviews that you've done online, they might be useful. That one is trippy. There's something called stretch region, which triples me and sort of, yeah, I don't know that I'll ever use that one. And we've got slice. Again, I'm not really sure what that's doing. Video camera is another overlay. So again, I don't know how exciting any of those are, but they are what they are. We do also have some filters. We've got blurs of assorted kinds. The mosaic blur is kind of like a pixelated thing. The radial blur. And again, I think the radial blur was the one I used in the background of that other video project. Color compression, FX color, generate. So it'll actually generate a color palette based on what's in your video, which could be quite useful in some cases. We've got a grid, and again, I would probably make sure I turn that off after I've used it, but it is what it is. All kinds of fun stuff in there. So we've got that there. Got the ability to warp things. Got all kinds of stuff. Lens distortion. Again, some of these might be useful, some of them might be fun, but you can play with those as well. And we've got a whole bunch of different things that relate to Fairlight effects as well. So a de-esser, dialogue processor, Fairlight EQ. I must admit, I did play with a lot of those options when I had my video from outside in the wind, and none of them were as good as the AI voice isolation. So by all means, play with these things if you want to. And again, like I can drag on some reverb onto this clip, and I'll play that so you can hear what it sounds like.
A new version of OBS Studio brings exciting new features and bug fixes. But should you upgrade straight away? Well, maybe.
I don't think that worked because that really didn't sound any different to my ear. So video, and it might be better. Potentially, you might need to actually be in Fairlight, and Fairlight kind of does have the ability to add the effects here as well. So that might be better there. I'm not really sure. I've never actually played with those in here. I'm just gonna try that again. Okay, there we go. So I probably need to drag it onto the audio specifically, not the video. So now I've got all these settings, and if I play this again.
A new version of OBS Studio brings exciting new features.
So again, that's probably a ridiculous amount of reverb for any purpose. It's, but potentially I could make this a little bit drier, so you'd hear more of the original. Let's maybe make this like 10%. I'll go back.
A new version of OBS Studio brings exciting new features and bug fixes.
So again, I don't think this is a particularly great example of doing that, but just be aware that those exist and you can play with them if you would like. And again, once you've got the effects here, we can come in and we can turn off under the audio. We can actually turn off the reverb. Theoretically, again, didn't work for me the last time I tried this, but we'll try it again.
OBS Studio.
There we go. In this case, it does. So, and you can also just delete that effect from up here, which is really cool. So maybe there are things that you want to play with. But again, I'm probably getting a little bit advanced for a lot of things. So what I do want to kind of end with is just once you've got your project ready to go, and again, this is not the most exciting one in the world, but let's just imagine that it's complete. We have a few different options on the deliver page. So that's this little rocket ship at the bottom. Click over here. I do actually have a preset called John's MP4, which you won't have, but essentially we can go and find the format that we want to export to. From this list, there are a whole bunch of different options. There's like 1080p for YouTube. You know, we've got different options here. In this case, I'm just going to go with the H.264 option. That's just an MP4 format. I'm going to tell this where I want it to save, and I'm just going to save it here. Although in this case, I want to check out my export video options because it does want to save this as QuickTime video, which is not really what I want. I want MP4. And again, a whole bunch of different options. We don't need to worry about this too much. In this case, timeline resolution should be fine, and it knows that this is vertical. What we do probably want to think about, though, is our subtitle settings. So we go down to our subtitle settings. There's a checkbox here called Export Subtitles. We have some options here. So if we wanted to, we could do this as a separate file. So that's going to generate a file, and it could be any of those formats. SRT without formatting is generally the one I recommend you use. If you just use SRT, it'll actually include HTML, bold and italic tags if you've used bold or italic in places. And for some destinations, that's fine. For others, that's not so good. So again, as a general rule, I like to go SRT without formatting. This means when we render this, it won't show the captions on screen, but we will have that file that we can upload to LinkedIn or YouTube or wherever. But I think the other option that we really want to do is actually burn into video. There is a third option, which I'll mention briefly. It's called As Embedded Captions. This means it will be inside of the video. And if you have a video player that supports that, you can potentially turn that on and off. But for our purposes, I think we want to go either separate file or burn into video. If we burn into video, it should actually render this for us, and we'll see those burnt in. So again, if you are going to burn them in, just make sure that they look good. You might want to change where they are positioned in the file. But once we've got that, and again, you could explore these settings to your heart's content, but again, let's not dwell on it too much for our purposes. Let's just go add to render queue. And it's asking if I want to replace the existing file. So I'm just going to change this. I'm going to say demo video render. And I'll go add to queue. And up here, you'll see that this is actually in the list. So if you wanted to render a few different versions of this at one time, see, maybe I want to go, I'm going to change the file name, and I will say no burnt captions. and I'll come in and I'll turn off the export subtitle and I'll go add to render queue. This will actually give me two versions of this video when I go to render it. So once we've got the variations that we want here, we can go render video, render one, or we can go render all. So I'm going to go render all. It's going to do its thing. It's going to render the video. And again, depending on how up-to-date your computer is, how fast it is, this may take a little while or a long while. And again, if you're working with a short clip, this is 1 minute 36, so this shouldn't take too much time at all. But again, if you're making an entire movie, this potentially could take quite a while. So it's rendering our burnt-on caption version, and now it's rendering our version without the captions. And that way we have a couple of variations to work with. So, and you'll see it's rendering the second video. And we're done. One nifty thing about this is if you actually right click on one of these options, there is a menu that comes and says open file location. And then it'll open that and it's put it on a different screen. I'm not going to drag it over because you don't need to see the mess of files that are on my computer. But now if I open this up, you won't be able to hear this audio, but theoretically, it hasn't rendered correctly. I don't know what's going on there. Let me try the other version. Is that the burnt-in captions? Okay, I've done something wrong. Let me just double check all my settings over here. And this is why we do it live, so you can see that I make mistakes and it doesn't always work for me either. Alright, so I didn't use the right codec, so that's probably the problem. Alright, I'm gonna actually just do that again. I'm just gonna add that to the render queue. It's gonna ask me if I want to replace the file. In this case, I can rename it or I can replace it. In this case, I'm just gonna replace it because, you know, that's what I wanted to do. I'll re-render it again. And then we should hopefully be good to go. So if I find this file, and again, I can right click on here and go to open file location, open it up. And again, you won't be able to hear this, but there is the video and it's actually rendered properly now. So those are a couple of things I wanted to show you in terms of just using DaVinci Resolve. Again, incredibly powerful. It can do all of the things, but don't feel like you need to know all of the things to get started. And one thing I will mention too is, and this is linked in the YouTube thing, I read an article about cutting and editing with DaVinci Resolve. I mean, in some ways it's really just about today's stream, but it does also list a whole bunch of resources. So if we scroll down, Blackmagic themselves have these really cool training books that you can download for free as PDFs. Got project files that come along with those. I've got a bunch of YouTube accounts which I highly recommend you follow. People like Mr. Alex Tech, Casey Farris, etc. A couple of audio podcasts as well. So if you want to check that out, you can go to johnlacey.com/LinkedIn and it'll bring you to my profile and you can just find the newsletter there. But don't forget, Blackmagic do have an entire page of resources to learn this software, and they've got project files that you can download and follow along with, which is really, really nifty. And, you know, introduce you to those other sections. So if you do want to become a colorist or explore the Fairlight settings a little bit more, then you certainly can do that. So I hope this has been useful. Again, DaVinci Resolve, it's free. Download it, try it out, watch some YouTube videos, try and get a sense of how this all works. And I don't think you'll regret it. I mean, it does have a little bit of a learning curve, but I think it's actually really worthwhile. So thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great week. Have a great weekend when you get there. And I'll talk to you again very, very soon.